Hello, this is Professor James Strickler, and this is a course in American government. This lesson is from Unit 5 about the executive branch, and it's Lesson 5 concerning the expanding powers of the presidency. In this lesson, you'll learn about reasons that presidential power has increased. To put this lesson in context, let's remember how the powers of the national government are divided into three branches: the legislative branch that makes laws, the executive branch that carries out the laws, and the judicial branch which judges whether or not people are obeying the laws. Now, these branches, when I originally illustrated them for you using this diagram, the circles are all of equal size, representing the concept that the three branches of government are co-equal. In other words, one is not officially dominant of the other, and they are each given opportunities to check and balance each other. But I previously taught you in the course that the reality at the time of the founding was that the legislative branch was expected to be by far the most powerful branch of the national government. It was expected to be most powerful because they are the ones that make the laws, that then the executive carries out and the judiciary judges whether or not people have obeyed. But as you're going to find out in this lesson, the president's powers have expanded to the point that that original concept is brought into question. We're going to look at four particular ways that the powers of the president have expanded. The first of those is expansion caused by the growth of the national government itself. Now, remember in this course, in the unit about federalism, you were taught about the original idea of federalism, that there'd be a lot of power that would reside in the states, a small amount of power kept by individuals that we call rights, and then a small amount of power given to the national government as powers enumerated in the United States Constitution. But in that same unit, you learned about how the balance of power changed dramatically during our country's history. The national government massively expanded its powers through various ways that we learned about in that unit, to where today, this quite possibly better represents the balance of power in the country, with the delegated and assumed powers of the national government nearly covering up entirely those of the states, with states having very few things left over to their police functions that are outside the control of the national government. Well, as the powers of the national government, because the president is the executive that carries out those powers of the national government, his powers grew also. So the power of the president grew as the power of the United States grew. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that that balance of power that you were shown a few moments ago between the three branches of government has changed. Maybe their power relative to each other is still the same and they've just all increased their power. But how their powers have remained relative to each other, you will see has changed as we go on to talk about more of the president's powers. But for right now, understand that his power grew because the power of the entire national government grew. A second way that the president's powers have expanded has been due to technological changes that have taken place in the world. For example, compared to the time of the founding, we have communications that allows us to speak to people on the other side of the planet almost instantaneously. We have transportation that allows us to move people all over the world, even armies all over the world. And we have integrated trade around the planet, where countries are buying and selling things from each other all over the entire globe. Now, these technological changes require faster response times. Now, think about it with this extreme example shown on the slide here. War has reached a point of technological sophistication that you can't really wait around to respond to the enemy, deliberating what you might do. By then, the enemy would have potentially an opportunity to totally devastate you because of the capacity of modern weapons. So, as a result, the government needs to be able to react quickly to these technological challenges that exist. Things just move too fast in the modern world for a slow government to deal with. But the Congress is extremely slow. They debate, they vote, they go through lots of very extreme procedures required by their rules and by the Constitution to get anything done. So in many ways, the United States Congress is very ill-equipped to deal with the challenges of the modern world. The president, on the other hand, can react very quickly to things. This is a picture that you already saw earlier in this unit about the executive branch. This is a photograph of President Obama as the United States military hunted down Osama bin Laden and killed him. The president's watching the raid happen live. Now, think about if the United States Congress had to debate about whether to take this action. By the time they reached a decision, the location of Osama bin Laden could have changed, and President Obama might not have then had a chance to apprehend or kill him. So there are times when you need quick decision makers, such as a president, and those times become more common as technology speeds up the pace of the modern world. So, greater technological sophistication has led to greater power residing in the office of the president. Another thing that's led to expansion of presidential power is the growing importance of foreign relations. Now back to the idea of technological change. As the world has developed these technologies that allow people, goods, and information to travel around the world quickly, the world has become interconnected. So that commerce, in other words trade, war, diplomacy, are all done globally now. You don't just deal with the country that's next door as you do these things, but you deal with the country on the other side of the planet. And so with all the countries of the world intertwined in this way, foreign relations become much, much more important. And if you look at the Constitution's text, the President of the United States obviously has the most important role in foreign relations. He's the commander-in-chief of our army that deals with our wars. He's the person that enters into treaties with other countries. He's the one that appoints ambassadors. He's the one that receives ambassadors. So when other countries around the world are interacting with the United States, they are interacting with the president. Here you see a president signing a treaty. You see a president receiving an ambassador from another country. You have a president interacting with the American military. So as these people that we as a country send out in the world to interact with other people in the world have an effect upon them, it's really the president that's directing these things. And so as our relationships with other countries become more common and more important, the person who's conducting those relationships, in other words, the President of the United States, also becomes more powerful along the way. A fourth reason that presidential power has expanded is congressional delegation. And this may be the most significant of these reasons why presidential power has expanded. Congress has increasingly delegated decision-making power to the executive branch. Now, this was already mentioned in this unit, but let me emphasize it. When Congress faces difficult problems, and by difficult, what I mean by that is complicated problems, such as cleaning up the nation's air, they don't want to have to address and figure out and perfectly describe the details of what needs to be done. They feel like they may lack the expertise and certainly lack the time to work those kind of things out. So what they have increasingly preferred to do is delegate those responsibilities to the president and the bureaucracy that works for him to figure out the rules. But think about, as they do that, as Congress is delegating these responsibilities to figure out the rules and, in a sense, effectively make law, what they are also doing is transferring power from the legislative branch to make the rules to the executive branch to make the rules instead. So if we go back to this diagram we had at the beginning of the lesson, where the original balance of power between the branches was imagined to be this, you'll see that particularly through this process of delegation, but also through the growing importance of foreign relations and the need from technology to speed up the actions of government, that the powers of the executive branch have grown while the powers, relatively speaking, of the United States Congress have shrunk. So much power has been transferred to the executive branch that arguably the executive branch is the most powerful of the three branches of government now, superior to that of Congress. Now, it is an open question. I said it's arguable that the executive is the most powerful. You still go back to the fact that even though he's exercising all these delegated powers, that theoretically Congress could pull them back away from him. But it's doubtful that they ever will. Once power is given, it's really hard to get it back. And as people come to become dependent on the president serving these functions for them, they would get upset with Congress if Congress started taking all these powers back away from the president. So at least arguably they permanently reside there. And arguably that makes the president more powerful than the Congress. Now let's review what we learned in this unit. How has national power impacted presidential power? Have they both shrunk together, or have they both grown together? As one increases, does the other decrease? Or has neither changed during our country's history? The correct answer is they've both grown together. As the national governments become more powerful, the presidencies become more powerful also. How has technology changed the power of the president? Does it now require more time to make decisions because of technology? Or is there less time to make decisions because of technology? Does technology slow deliberation and make it easier? Or are advisors no longer needed because of technology? Technology has changed the power of the president by requiring less time to make decisions, and the president being the only person in government that can really make those quick decisions. So power naturally flows to him. Why do foreign relationships impact presidential power? Is it because Congress now dominates those foreign relationships? Is it because the president is our representative or face to the world? Is it because fewer foreign relationships are taking place now? Fewer foreign interactions are taking place than before? Or is it because the Supreme Court now takes the lead in these areas? Foreign relationships impact presidential power because the president is our representative, or in other words, our face to the world. So as foreign relations have become more important, with his leading role, he has become more important. How has the president gained power from the United States Congress? Has it been through congressional delegation? Has it been through constitutional amendments? Has it been through Supreme Court decisions? Or is it that the president hasn't actually gained power from Congress? The correct answer is congressional delegation has continually transferred power from Congress to the president. That completes this this lesson. The next lesson, also from Unit 5, will be Lesson 6, about the president's roles in our system of government.